There's everybody today. Thank y'all for being here, and we want to thank everybody that is watching. Yeah, everybody wave. Say hey. You know, in Mobile, they have the Azalea Trailmade wave, which is kind of a bent hand. Beth and Kristine knows what I'm talking about. Andrea doesn't. But all right, we're going to go right into our personal paranormal stories. And when we get through with all the stories, then we're going to go into our Memorial Day tribute. And just remember, folks, this is live. It's unscripted. It's unedited, obviously, because we're doing it live. Unfiltered. And like we were talking earlier, hopefully none of us will have to be filtered. I don't think we have any sailors and construction workers in our group today. So I think we'll be okay. Now, we're going to start with a young lady from up Opelika way who is an author, published author. She has 2 books, and she's been on the show before with us. She's part of our ETs, the executive team, if you don't remember that, as Kristine Rogers. And I'm going to let her tell a little bit about her stuff, and then she's going to share her personal paranormal story. Go ahead, Kristine.
I'm Kristine. I'm a mom, housewife, author. Not really a whole lot else to say, but I just try to take care of the family, friends, and help out here when I can. And my story, the one that I'm going to tell you about, is when I was little. I was living in a house up in Minnesota, and there was a spirit that lived in the basement. Of course, everybody has their stories about basements, but it used to be my favorite place to go because that's where I felt safe and secure. And in my opinion, I felt like that was my guardian angel, because anytime I ever had any issue, I could go down there and vent, and I just felt comforted being down there. And it's just, that's what really got me involved in looking into the paranormal and stuff like that, because I always felt like I had a connection there, and I felt like somebody was watching over me and taking care of me when nobody else would. So I know I got 5 minutes, but
no, you said that was in your basement?
No, it was in the basement. Yeah, no, the house I was telling you about.
Yeah. Right. So tell us a little bit about that basement. I mean, what was special about it? Was it finished, unfinished? I mean,
there was part of it that was finished, but the majority of it was unfinished. It had the laundry room down there and the pantry, and my brother and I had a small little area that we were allowed to play in because, the rest of the house had to stay perfectly clean. And so we would go down there and we would play, and whenever he wasn't able to be around me or I wasn't able to be around him, I'd go down there, and it was like having somebody there to take care of me when nobody else would. So I mean, you got kind of the vibe that it was a guardian angel aspect? Well, I actually saw an elderly lady that would basically sit there with me and tell me stories that, I've never been able to verify, but she'd tell me stories about her life and stuff like that. And it was very comforting. It was like having a grandparent when I wasn't allowed to have grandparents.
Yeah. Wow.
So she interacted with you. She talked back to you?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really cool.
Okay.
And there was only one scary part down there that I can remember, and it wasn't real clear, where I was hearing something that wasn't very nice. And so she would disappear and the other voice would stop, and then she'd come back.
Wow.
So like a real grandma.
Yeah, like a grandma. That was my guardian angel. And she's been with me ever since.
Awesome. I got something to comment on that, but Dagny just showed up, another member of the ETs. And we're going to welcome Dagny in. Hey, girl.
Hey.
Hey. All right. Dagny got to share her story, which is, this is just ironic. This is ironic because the story that Dagny shared last week kind of coincides with this because she had a blue light that basically did the same thing for her. Do y'all remember her telling that story?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Wow. And it also reminded me that in the Ben Moore Public Library in downtown Mobile, they actually have.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I'm all broken to pieces. What can I say? In the public library in downtown Mobile, they have sightings of a little old lady that will sit there and read to the children. Now, how cool is that? Wow. And, yeah. And I mean, I just think that, you know, the thing about it being in a basement is what intrigues me. I mean, well, the whole story does basically, but, you know, the fact that, you know, usually things like that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, if I, you know, because in the ground is where the, you know, dead bodies are put and stuff like that. But it was just so unique and so cool that you could go to your basement and have interaction with this entity, whether it be a spirit or a guardian angel or whatever you want to call it.
Was the house old or was it a newer home?
No, it was built in 1867 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
It's a very old house.
Very old house.
Yes, since I moved out of it, it's been sold 7 times.
Wow.
Look it up.
So did you have an attire that you could say, oh, that was definitely turn of the century, that was definitely the 20s, 40s, or like?
It was old. It was so long ago. I don't remember exactly, but it was kind of like it wasn't white. It's kind of a cream color. But it was like pajamas that they used to wear way back when.
Right.
And I loved my pajamas, so I'd go down there in my PJs and we just kind of chill.
Story time. That's cool.
You know, it's like awesome. when they put you to bed and they tell you stories and stuff like that. Like your grandparents, when they put you to bed and they tell you a bedtime story and then they'd go on their merry way.
Right.
The kind of interaction I had with her down in the basement.
I mean, I just think that's amazing. I mean, I don't want this to sound demeaning at all, but you actually have recollection and viable memories of a person and not just a feeling. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, it was an actual person. She was an older lady, gray hair, powder blue eyes. I mean, the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And it was just, she gave me such a feeling of calm that it was just, I couldn't wait to go down there and spend time with her. And it didn't matter if it was at night or during the day or whatever. She was always there. And when my brother was there, she never actually appeared to him, just to me.
Right.
And my brother hated the basement.
So did your brother never really had any experiences with her?
No.
She was just all yours.
She was all mine.
That's awesome. I mean, you know, just the fact that you were in a situation where you needed that kind of interaction and she was there for you.
Mm-hmm. I hated to leave the house, but of course I was little. I didn't have a choice. Yeah. But she's followed me everywhere I go. You know, I don't see her like I did before, but, you know, I get that same calm feeling when she's here.
Wow. So still.
Mm-hmm.
Still.
Have your children ever talked about her?
No, that's a whole nother story altogether. They have their own.
They have their own. Well, I wasn't sure, like, if maybe it was something like if she was more easily seen by children, which is why you were able to see her as a child and now you can sense her as an adult. Right. You know, maybe your children saw her when they were little. That's why I was just.
I don't know if it's the same person, but all my children have guardian angels. It's just they don't see them as much as they do now, as they did then.
Yeah. Okay. we're going to pause that right there because I'm planning a show on angels, guardian angels, because I'm not going to go into the story now because we're going to do a story on angels, and because when my oldest daughter, who's 30, let's do the math now, 33, I'm an old geezer. When she was 7 years old, she had an interaction with what she has called to this day her guardian angel, where she got lost in a crowd of thousands of people at the beach, and we were there, and that's who got her back to her family. And I'll save that story for that show. So, but Kristine, anything else you want to add? That's an amazing story.
No, we can share more as we go through, but that was my first experience.
Well, we'll get to the others, believe me. At some point. All right. Well, now we're going to hear from Beth White. She is a paramedic, or I don't know if you'd rather be called an EMT or paramedic, whatever you or
paramedic.
But we met Beth through our Strange Journeys group, and when I put out the call for this, what we originally thought was going to be a podcast, and now it's a live stream, I asked if anybody wanted to help, and Beth stepped up to the plate and said, yeah. And so she's already been with us on a couple of these, but we're going to let Beth tell a little bit about herself and then tell her either her first or her most profound paranormal experience.
Most profound. So I'm Beth. I'm a paramedic in Jackson County, Mississippi. Been a paramedic for at least 22, 23 years. I was born in Texas. We moved here in 73. I'm kind of dating myself. Whenever I was 2, and we lived in Moss Point for a while, and then we moved up to Hurley. We bought a trailer, double wide, and moved up to Hurley. So, new place. You wouldn't think it would be haunted, but it was. I think it's more the land than the actual houses sometimes. So, the house that we were in, you could see the kitchen whenever you'd walk out of my room and into the bathroom. And it got to where I would see someone standing in front of the refrigerator whenever I'd come out of my room and go into the bathroom. The first few times I thought one of my parents was up, and I'd step back and look and didn't see anything. So I was okay, seeing things, whatever, but I kept seeing it. And then I started hearing the refrigerator door open and close. And that's a very distinct sound, a refrigerator door opening and closing. So I figured, okay, somebody's trying to figure out, or maybe they didn't have them whenever I always thought it was a man. What it looked like was a slender male standing in front of the refrigerator. I could see long hair, and really couldn't tell clothing that well, but just looked like a long-haired male standing in front of the refrigerator. So one summer, whenever I was a teenager, I'd stay up all night like you do, and I went into the kitchen, made a snack, and came back into my room. Well, as I walk into my room, I kind of flicked the door closed behind me, and I did, and I heard something hit it. And it wasn't down below, like I slammed the door in my dog's face because we had a really small dog. It was up here, right behind my head, and I just kind of stopped and froze and turned around, and I fully expected to see someone standing there whenever I opened the door, which I probably would have crapped my pants and screamed and freaked my parents out. But I just kind of, huh?
What's funny is when you said I froze, there was a lag in the video and you literally froze.
Great special effects.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. So I open up the door and I peek out. And of course, nobody's standing there. I looked. The dog is not there. The dog is not walking away, which I'd already pretty much figured it was not the dog, unless the dog came flying through the house and hit the door. So I just kind of said, I'm sorry. I thought you could walk through walls. Didn't mean to slam the door in your face. Well, I saw him all throughout my teenage years and kind of into my early 20s. And I moved out, and my dad passed away in 2001. I went and was hanging out with my mom one day, and we were in the living room or the den area watching TV. And all of a sudden we both heard the door of the refrigerator open and close. And the way the trailer was, you had a back door, front door, and then there was a side door, which pretty much everybody in the family would come in the side door. But, oh no, what happened? Hold on, my screensaver suddenly kicked in. Oh my gosh. So my mom and I were sitting there watching.
We lost you for a second.
I've been having internet issues lately. I'm sure everybody's on internet lately. So with all the quarantining.
Yeah.
But my mom, you could walk into the house and no one would really know you were there unless you stomped your feet or you came around the corner or came into the dining room area, and then it's like, oh, somebody's here. So I thought that her crazy next door neighbor had gotten into the house and was trying to, I guess, get a beer or something out of the refrigerator. So we both looked at each other, and then I jumped up and ran. I was about ready to stomp somebody, and there was nobody there. I said, okay, I know I just heard that. I said, Mom, what did you just hear? She said, I heard the refrigerator door open and close. I said, I'm so glad you heard that. I said, I have been hearing that for years. She said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you told me that. I've been hearing it. So I was, oh, at least we got some credibility here. So apparently the paranormal activity still carried on, but we'll have to talk about that another time. But it was pretty interesting growing up with that. And I think there were a friend of mine who was a little psychic said that there was a man, which he's the one that I saw, and then there were two women in the house. And apparently they would pace back and forth because the dogs would just sit there and watch something go back and forth. It's like, okay, well, but I was already into the paranormal and everything. Grew up watching In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy and loved the new one with the new stock and had books. So it was interesting to actually see it firsthand and experience it.
So now when you said you feel like it was the land, was that basically just a supposition because you were having this activity and it was basically a new mobile home?
That's the only thing I can figure, because we were the first. We went and picked out the house, right, and were the first ones to ever live in it. Now there had been another trailer there before. Other than that, I'm not sure. I think that was the first house that we knew of that had been there. So I don't know. I mean, it's southern Mississippi. There's no telling what kind of, if any Civil War stuff happened or any of that. So.
Did your parents replace the refrigerator ever in this time? Like, was there ever a new refrigerator and it just still continued with this the refrigerator, or was it that refrigerator?
It was actually
maybe it was the guy that built it. He was really attached.
He wanted to see if it was still working. Actually, it was different.
Checking the light.
It was two different refrigerators. The first one was a side by side with the water and ice maker, and then the one that my mom and I both heard was a newer one with the freezer and refrigerator. And I guess he was, okay, how do you open this one? Because it didn't have a pull. It was the kind that you had the dip in. So I guess he was trying it out.
So, but you and your mom both saw it, but until the time you were sitting there together, you didn't realize that the other one was seeing it, right?
I don't think she ever saw him.
I mean, heard it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I never knew that she heard it because they weren't ever around other times that I heard it. It was usually if I was at home alone. And we also had another thing happen that my mom and I, another time I was over there visiting, the air conditioner would turn on and you could hear music. And it was just low enough. You could even tell it was like you were listening to a radio station because you'd hear the music and then it was like the DJ was talking. But it was just low enough to where the song sounded familiar, but you couldn't quite figure out what it was. And you really couldn't understand what the person was saying. So I finally looked at her and said, "Do you hear that?" I thought she left her Bose radio on real low. So I checked it. It wasn't on. And she said, "Yeah, I keep hearing that." I said, "I only hear it whenever the air conditioner's on." "Yeah, me too." I said, "Okay, good." Another time, thank goodness I'm not hallucinating. I'm not losing my mind. And I actually asked one of the AC technicians who came to do some maintenance on it, is there anything in that thing that could possibly pick up a radio transmission? And I really wish I would have videoed it because the look on his face was like, really? I know it's a crazy question, but just answer it for me. No, there's not. Okay, that's all I needed to know. How are we hearing this music?
Wow. But the unique thing is that you and your mom were basically experiencing the same things, but separately. Mm-hmm. And you didn't realize it until y'all were sitting there together and heard the refrigerator. I've just never heard of a hungry ghost.
Or maybe he was thirsty. There was beer in there.
Wow. And a long-haired hippie freak at that.
Do what?
A long-haired hippie freak at that.
I know, right?
Well, the thing that it made me think of, especially if it was the long hair, this was in Hurley, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all of that area in there, back before white man and civilization, was all Indian territory. I think I don't remember how far up the Pascagoula Indians came, but they were, that's who the river's named after, is those Indians from that area. And so you might be dealing with a possible indigenous or native spirit there.
That's the general impression I got, was it was a Native American. Okay. Because clearly he didn't know what a refrigerator was, so I'm figuring he'd been gone for a while. I think I even told him one time, just stick your head through the door, you'll see the light's not on.
The light does go off.
Or you see this little button right here? Look, it turns the light on and off. Leave the refrigerator alone.
Right. You're waking me up at night. Just grab your deer and head on down the road. Oh, that's awesome. Just the fact that, I thought about this where you were talking. I've said it before in our other live streams, but the only true and irrefutable evidence of the paranormal is personal experience. you experienced it, and nobody can change your mind because you know that you experienced this. But then to connect with your mom to say that she's been sensing the same thing. I mean, that personal experience is just irrefutable evidence to me. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know how y'all feel about it. I don't know how those that are watching feel about it, but nobody can argue with that. And speaking of evidence, our next story from Andrea, she actually brought along show and tell.
I did.
I've mentioned this before, but which thank you, Beth, Kristine. Those were awesome stories, and you're actually leading into stuff that we're going to be talking about later. So it's perfect foundation. Love those stories, and hopefully we'll get some people asking about those, and maybe we can garner some discussion. But Andrea and I met with a national tour company. It was a haunted tour company several years back, and she is an amazing researcher. And I hadn't shared it with the rest of the ETs, but she did some research for my family and found some amazing things that just blew my mind. And my family is much appreciative for what she's done. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea Betteas. She's one of our ETs, the executive team, and she's going to tell her story now. And give me cues when I'm to show the picture, okay?
Okay, I could do that. Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a mom, a wife, and I also have started doing research with my husband for what we call the Grave Hunter Society. And we're hoping to have a website live and going in about a week or so with a lot of our documents and research and experiences that we've had. We finally feel like we've, over the years, have enough to bring together and start also offering services for research as well. It's something that we really enjoy doing. But I also really enjoy researching the unexplained and the twisted, so to say. And so we'll go on a lot of historical tours, especially my favorite, like the twisted ones. And Ohio is full of all kinds. We have Sasquatch Triangle. We have the most haunted city, the most haunted town. We have Halloween USA. I mean, Ohio is full of all of it. And right down the road from us is Waynesville, which was dubbed, I think, in the 90s, one of the most haunted towns in America. And we have been on all their little haunted and historical tours. And in 2014, we went on a Ghost and Goblets tour that was called the Quaker Hill Tour. And so they take you through the town and tell you different stories of apparitions and hauntings that take place. And then it ends in what's called the Friends Home. And we stayed there and talked with a lot of the curators there and, kind of stuck around, took pictures, listened to more paranormal experience stories from other people, and then left. And right down the road is a McDonald's. So we went and got ice cream. It was a date. We don't get to go out very often. So we were like, let's go get ice cream. So while we were there, I said, hey, do you want to go to the Axe Murder House? And that is what really brings a lot of attention to Waynesville. Was in 1879 in August, there was a triple axe murder. And what makes it even worse is that it was of three women. It was Mrs. Hattie, Mrs. Clementine Weeks, and her daughter, Myrtle. And I have them wrote down because I don't want to have their names wrong. And they were murdered and left with a hatchet. Mrs. Weeks' throat was cut, but they were left for a week. Nobody found them for a week. And the reason why they were discovered is because the house started to smell. And so one of the constables had to break into a window, and he not only discovered their bodies throughout the house, he discovered that they were also partially ate by rats by this point, and whoever killed them took time to cover their bodies with lye. So they were even partially dissolved by the time they were found. It was gross. It was awful. It made national news. It was in all of the newspapers all the way up to New York City. It's still unsolved. They really don't know who did it. They have a couple of culprits. The main culprit was Mrs. Hatt's son, eldest son, 18. He's 18 years old. His name was William Anderson. And they think maybe he did it, but we'll never know because about a week after they were found, he committed suicide. So as time went on, nobody would ever stay in the building. Nobody would, the house, nobody would keep it. They were scared out of the house. Ownership didn't last longer than just a few years. And then sometime in the 50s, the house caught on fire. It was a mystery. And they built on top of it a new home. It's a plain ranch, stucco on the outside house. Nobody still will stay in that house. They still experience apparitions, hauntings. They see things happen. They have their hair pulled. It's just not a pleasant experience to be in there. So I said, let's walk down. It's right down the road from McDonald's. Let's see what we can see. So we went, and I had my camera and iPhone. John had his iPhone. We left all of our investigative equipment that we would normally have with us in the back of the car. We just didn't really think anything would happen. So I'm standing in front of the building and I'm taking pictures. And I can tell you, I saw nothing with my eyes. It only showed up on film. And my husband did the same thing. It was about 10:30 at night on the 24th of October. And if you want to show the pictures, Tom. So I took one picture, and it's the first one. And you can kind of see off to the left of the photograph, maybe some swirls starting to happen. And my husband said, hey, why don't you take another picture? Because he thought he saw something over by the front door. That's the second picture. So I took another picture, and I said, I think I got something. And you can see our watermarks on it. That is that is what we caught. We really feel like that is whoever broke into the house and killed those 3 women that night. We think maybe it's their spirit or the demon that possessed them. I don't know, trying to get back into the house. That was the first picture. So off to the left, you can kind of see some swirls. You can see some fading here and there, and obviously an orb. I don't know how much credit you guys put towards orbs. I kind of usually think they're more dust, pollen, humidity and things like that. But that one is kind of strange, and it's octagon-like shape. But
there's a face down in the bottom.
On the left side? I know what you're talking about. The whole photograph is very interesting. Now, some of it is watermarked with the Grave Hunter Society's logo, so that does kind of interfere.
You talking about in the basement window? I see something in the basement window as well.
I'm telling you, the house is just, it's nothing to look at now. I mean, the rest of the homes are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Turn of the century homes. But then there's this one who kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But we definitely, so in the second picture, you could see where it's trying to crawl onto the roof, and where it's, you could almost see tentacles. I mean, it's just crazy. It actually has a shape. It's like an ectoplasma shape to it. I have looked into St. Elmo's fire. St. Elmo's fire is generally violet to purple in that light spectrum. This definitely has an orange yellow hue to it. It's not a ball of lightning.
Right there.
The weather was ideal for a cold Ohio October night.
See it?
We went back to the car as quick as we could, got the rest of our equipment, and came back, and for lack of a better phrase, it was completely dead. So there was nothing else there. But that is, I have had other experiences in Waynesville. I've had experiences since I was a child, but that is the first one that I really feel like I have solid evidence that goes, I'm not crazy. I know what I saw. I know there's something else there. It just gives me, that solid ground to stand on. So that's my experience.
Well, if everybody was seeing something else, they saw what you were seeing, but then,
there's so much to it. Yeah,
I would like to, expand it more and look into that basement window. It looked like there was something there. It may have been another orb, which again, I'm like you, that's kind of an iffy ground with orbs, but I always go back to this. There's two stories I tell on orbs. While most of them are probably dust or, lens flare, that kind of thing, there are two that caused me to pause. And one was when this guy had a picture taken of him, and over his right shoulder was an orb. And when they blew it up, the orb had a face in it, and the face was that of his grandfather who had passed away just a couple of weeks before.
Wow.
That one makes me stop and pause. And the other one was these investigators were working at a house one night and was taking pictures of the yard, which I don't remember why they were taking pictures of the yard, but they took like one of those shutter, what do they call it, a shutter picture where it just takes one picture after another, like 20 or 30 pictures.
Yeah.
All of them were just a clear night. You could, it was actually using a flash. You can see the grass and the trees and everything. But one of them, out of all of those pictures, there were thousands of orbs in the picture. In just one of the whole sequence. So that one makes me pause a little bit too. So you never know. But
being on that tour that we did for Spirit Expeditions years ago, for doing tours in the Robertson building, which was an incredibly dusty, old, yucky building. I have captured many photographs that I can't explain, but when it comes to orbs, I can usually go, nah, that's an orb. But this one that I caught at Waynesville, that was, and everybody who is an investigator does something, they have their own piece of equipment that they like, that they prefer. Some people like to try to catch EVPs, other people like to use EMF meters. Me, I'm just, give me my camera, let me walk around, take pictures. I don't really want to talk to anything, but if it wants to stand out and say cheese, I'm happy to photograph it. And this one really gave me, I guess, what I wanted.
You got what you wanted.
Yeah. Be careful what you ask for. So
exactly. All right. Anybody else got any questions for Andrea on that? Beth, Kristine?
So no one was smoking whenever you got that picture of the...
No one was smoking.
Okay.
No,
that's
no
what
one
it kind of reminded me of, was somebody smoking and blowing.
We went out even the next day. I came home. My mom had been babysitting. I'm like, look at this picture. So I asked her if she would watch them the next night because the weather was going to be about the same. And we could go out and just try to see what we could do. So we were even doing where we would blow into the air to see if we could get some steam going from our breath. And that wasn't even showing up in the camera like this. Oh, wow. This was, and you can almost see where it's like climbing onto the roof, like going up onto the roof. To me, honestly, it looked kind of creepy. I mean, I didn't go, oh, that looks like it's cute, I want to pet it. I mean, it was definitely creepy.
Yeah. I mean, that when we used to do the tours, during my introduction, I would ask people not to smoke for that very reason. I mean, yeah, we were walking outside and the wind was blowing. So it wasn't for any other reason than we don't want any external influence So should someone take a picture and there be a mist or orbs or whatever, that we'll say we know it wasn't cigarette smoke because nobody was smoking.
Right.
You know, that's the kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure on that one they had that stipulation as well. But you know, that I've always done that on an investigation. In some places, I just stick my camera in, you know, reach around in the room and just hold the button down, and then just move it around the room and take pictures without me even moving into the room, because I didn't want to stir up any dust. You know, that kind of just. The less contamination you have, the better. But that leads me back to my original statement, was the only true and irrefutable evidence of the paranormal is personal experience. You know, people can look at those pictures all day long and they can say this, you know, you got that going on, that going on. But Andrea knows that what Andrea saw and experienced herself, and nobody can refute that. I mean, it's nothing worth arguing about, you know. But you know, you got people out there that will always be debunking and naysayers and that kind of thing. Well, guys, these have been amazing stories, and this is the essence of what Strange Journeys is all about. This personal connection to the paranormal, that personal experience, and that's what's going to be the focus of this show when we do our phantom phone calls next week. We've got a couple of personal encounters with phone calls, and that's the premise of the show. We're going to be bringing in other experiences out there from people we don't know that we come across in our research. But the primary focus of next week's show will be those of us on the ETs that have experienced those phantom phone calls. And that being said, we want your experience. Send us a message on Strange Journeys Facebook page, facebook.com/Strange Journeys. Send us a message on there about your phantom phone call and let us know about it. And if you will give us permission, we'll share it on the show, and even share your name if you give us permission as well. But we want your experiences. That's, you know, we celebrate, maybe that's not a good word, but we share our love of the paranormal with you. But one of the premises of the show is that we want your experiences in return. We want to hear from you, and then we'll put it out on our live stream. And we want that. We're looking for that. So because we're all on these strange journeys together, we want that irrefutable evidence from your personal experience to share on our show, because we're going to be sharing ours. So it's only fair that you send yours.